Welcome to the Wisdom of Show. I'm your host, Simon Bowen, and every week I'm speaking to the world's greatest leaders, thinkers, and entrepreneurs about complex issues and impactful leadership. Join us in the Renaissance of Wisdom. Well, welcome to this episode of the Wisdom of Show. And, the purpose of the Wisdom of is to transfer the wisdom, the learnt wisdom of really successful people in their fields to everybody else that might be trying to achieve similar things to them. We live in a pretty complex world these days. There's a lot of uncertainty, and people are, striving to be successful, and there are other people that have walked ahead of them. And I'm really looking forward to this episode because anyone that's lived in Australia will be aware of the marketing giant that is Chemist Warehouse. And if there's a market that has challenges in terms of being successful, it would be the retail market. And Jack Gance is one of the three founders of Chemist Warehouse. And Jack, thanks so much for giving us this time. I know you're busy and there's a lot going on, but I really appreciate you giving this time to unpack the story a little bit of Chemist Warehouse and your success.
My pleasure.
I'm going to read some things out because I really want people to actually get this, and I don't want to miss any details. So you opened your first pharmacy store in 1972, and I think you grew that to about 35 stores through the My Chemist Pharmacy. What a lot of people in Australia will be familiar with is the Les Specs, the Laytan, Australis, Colours of Australia brands of suntan cream and glasses and fragrances and cosmetic. There'd be a lot of people now having a moment thinking, well, I've worn that or I've bought those. And these were all generated through you and your business model. And through your business operation, you created the largest pharmacy distribution business in Australia, as is the case with a lot of people that are wildly successful. You decided to disrupt the pharmacy industry and created Chemist Warehouse. And that has become a major disruptive industry. If I just think about, it's a multi-billion-dollar chain. These are extraordinary numbers, Jack, commanding over 50% market share front of house and 20% of all prescriptions written. They are, wild numbers, really, when you think about it. And you're dominating the pharmacy markets in many countries. And you're also now heading into a merge with Sigma, and that really is going to bring two quite powerful companies together to really kind of expand and create even further disruption in the pharmacy space. So, there'd be lots and lots of details that we could go through, but suffice to say, this chain is a giant of retail, and there's a lot of lessons to be learned out of that. I'm pretty interested. You made a comment that I read. We're building this for our kids and grandkids, ensuring that we pass down a sustainable and successful business, and we'll keep doing what's needed to stay ahead and continue offering great value to our customers. Customer value has been a driving force, hasn't it? Really, all the way through.
Yes. Can I just correct you?
Sure.
You said that we're disruptors. We didn't set out to be disruptors. We really did not set out to disrupt the market. What we set out to do was to provide our customers with the best possible products, lowest price, biggest range. And if our competitors decided not to match or follow what we're doing, I can't help it. But can I be clear that we didn't steal our customer or our competitors' business? In fact, when we look at an area where we entered, might be 6 pharmacies in that area. Each of them we're doing about, say they're doing $1.1 million turnover. That's $6.6 million. We would enter that area and we would enter 6 or 8 or 9 or $10 million turnover pretty well from get-go because people knew us. So we would get, let's say we got $8 million. We wouldn't get $8 million from our competitors. They might go down from 1.1 to 1 million. So we would only get about 600,000 from them. The rest of it we got from supermarkets, from the specialty stores. But more importantly, what we did was we're able to increase the market by people buying more. They would buy things they never thought they were going to buy. They walk into the store, they would see a great range, great prices, great variety, and they walked out spending more than they wanted to spend when they walked in. And that's how we grew the market.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, I've had people tell me exactly that. They go to a Chemist Warehouse to buy one thing and come out with, you know,
Yeah.
$100 worth of stuff they didn't go in there to buy, but there were things there that were legitimate things to buy, right?
My friends say to me, "You're a bastard. I went to your store and I spent $100. I only wanted to buy a packet of aspirins." I said, "Great, we need that."
So what? So let's talk. Let's just take a moment. Like, if someone, particularly in the retail space, but just in business in general, what do you think some of the real differentiation of Chemist Warehouse actually is? I mean, you have a long-term relationship with Sigma from the first stores that you open. Obviously, supply chain matters. What would you say are the real differentiating factors in the business model that Chemist Warehouse has brought to market?
Well, I think the biggest differentiator was that we were very, very, very completely focused on consumer demand, consumer needs, and what consumer wanted. All our partners worked in the stores. All the buyers worked in the stores. Everyone was very product and consumer focused. I think that had a big difference, and we keep the buyers there for a long time. Other marketing groups switch their buyers around. They're worried that they might be contaminated by the suppliers and they might make decisions that are not in their best interests. That always is a possibility, but we think that we have loyal um, buyers that have been with us for a long time, and they've been there for 5, 10, 15 years. And I think that they make decisions for us for the business because they love the whole way we operate. They've got autonomy, they've got ability to make things happen, and there's a real joy of working in the business.
Mm. Is there anything that you've done? You think about buyers, you think about supplier relationships. So obviously there's the business is built on long-term relationships. And is there anything that you've consciously done, you or the other co-founders of the business that have consciously done to really make those long-term relationships last? But increasingly people say, "Oh, there's no loyalty anymore." You've probably heard the same thing. I'm not sure that that's true, and so I'm interested in how you see that process, the art form of really building long-term relationships.
Well, I can tell you that I have a philosophy that if a deal isn't fair for both parties, it's not a deal worth doing. And I always ensure that when we finish a deal, when we do a deal, that they're not going to high five and say that they've got the best deal they could possibly want, but they've got a deal which works for them. Because if it works for them and it works for us, it's going to work for both of us. So, we have a philosophy that we make sure that any deal we do is a win-win for both of us. But we went one further than that. When Swiss went to America
Yeah.
and they were given a distribution by Walgreens, they forgot the basics ABCs of distribution of retail, and they got screwed by Walgreens. In my opinion, they got screwed by Walgreens. They came back and they were really not doing well at all. We gave them a very large order and we looked after them and supported them. As a result of that, they were able to go and sell the business for 10 billion Hong Kong dollars, which is about 1.7 Australian dollars. And it was great for them. And we got a bottle of wine. And I thought it wasn't even Grange. I thought, you know, the thing is, I've learned a lesson, and the lesson is that if we're going to support somebody, we want to make sure it's a win-win for everybody, and that if they win, we win as well. So I've gone and I've looked at every category to look for companies that we can say, you're a good supplier of us, and we're a good customer, we're very loyal, but we'd like to change it to a one where we're not just a customer, but we're also a shareholder. We want to have an equity arrangement with you because that way,
Ah,
instead of talking to you as a customer and you as a supplier, we'll talk as partners. And if there are good opportunities to grow the market, we'll do it with you. And we will carry your products and we'll support them to the nth degree. But what we'll also do is we'll come back to you with ideas where you can grow the market and introduce products which will be able to grow your business, which will, in fact, as we're shareholders of your business, be able to help grow our overall benefit. And we've done that with a number of people, and it's been very successful. We're able to work with them and talk to them as partners and come up with ideas that benefit. It's a win-win-win.
And so when you look at say a supplier and you arrive at this decision, I think I could partner with them. What are the signals? What are the signs that tell you that is actually a company we'd be happy to enter this kind of relationship with? Because you don't know that much about each other on the front end.
No, well, I think the thing is, we're not talking about customers we haven't dealt with. We're talking about suppliers we haven't dealt with. We're talking about suppliers from the range that we deal with. So
Right.
the thing we look for is someone that's got successful products and good marketing.
Yeah.
Is to have an arrangement where we're an equity partner with someone that's not going to be successful, isn't going to give us the benefit of being an equity partner. We want someone that will listen to our recommendations and collaborate with us to come up with good ideas and good strategies which we can put into place. With 600 odd stores, we can produce, or they can produce, the minimum batch size and get it in our stores and have it in our stores within 2 weeks. Gives them instant access to the marketplace. So we need to work with people that have got products that sell, that have got marketing that works, that have got a team that will listen, and it'll be a two-way feedback. That's important because we've got someone that's just going to give us equity without being able to add value to their relationship. It's not going to work. It's going to end up in a mess. It's going to end up in a sad mess.
Yeah. And that's effectively a blueprint for business, to be honest, that you have just outlined. Make sure you have a product that sells, which means it's a product that people need and want to buy. Get the marketing right. And a lot of people start businesses thinking they've got the next great thing, but they don't actually understand marketing. And marketing is the thing that drives the sustainability of the business. And then a great team and a willingness to, collaborate rather than just, run according to your own plan. It is like a blueprint for business in general, not just to be a great supplier partner, but you want to run a great business, do those things. I'd love to dig into, the world is preoccupied with AI right now and technology and everything else. I'd love to unpack how you've seen retail change over the 50 years that you've been in it. What were the big movements that you've seen, and where are we at right now with retail? And then we'll dive into, culture, team, execution, things like that. But how have you seen retail shifting?
There's been a lot of change in technology. I remember the first time that the first store I had, we had a zip zap machine, and you put a credit card in, and when zip zap, you sent the voucher to the credit card company. If they got it, they then charged the customer, and you got paid. It was, today it happens instantly, and today you can have, transactions that occur, and you get feedback on customers. I mean, the technology changes has been incredible.
Yeah.
The app we have enables us to be able to have customers call for repeats. It reminds them when they need their doses. They're able to look up health issues. We're here to provide the customer with more and more benefit that makes them sticky to us. I mean, a lot of apps around. People have an app, they'll download the app, and I've probably got 1,000 apps on their phone they never used in the last 10 years. They're just clogging up. We want our app to be one that people will use because it's going to provide them with a reason to come back and give them some sort of value.
Yeah. Did you introduce, the idea of people leaving their scripts at the pharmacy, being able to access the app, and then not having to worry about managing their own scripts and things? Or had the industry moved to that already? Talking about sticky factors.
Well, in trying to help our customers, we encourage them to leave their prescriptions with us. They're safe. They can ring up and they can order their prescriptions, or they can send us an email or an SMS, or they can order on the app. They can just go to the app and they've got the prescriptions there. They can click on that, and we'll have the prescription ready before they arrive.
Yeah.
I mean, these are all things that we need to look. Everything's customer focused. What are we going to do to make the customer make a better experience for the customer, make it easier for the customer, less friction, less time, and better outcomes?
Yeah, I like that. Less friction, less time, and better outcomes. I mean, the fact is, the things that are stickiest in terms of customers staying with you are always the things that create the greatest value for them. That is what creates stickiness. And people are dealing with a lot of friction, no time, and of course, they want to win. They want to get great service and be looked after. How do you? It's evident by how you talk that everything you think about starts with the customer. How have you consciously, and indeed inside the pharmacies, that is true as well. When you walk into a chemist warehouse, there are people that want to help you and things like that. Are there any specific things internally that you've done to really drive that customer-centric focus right through the organization so that it's lived at every level? Or is it just happening because of who you and your co-founders and the leaders are?
Well, it's happened because of the culture. Let me explain a bit about the culture.
Yes.
My brother and I started the pharmacy in 1972, and then Mario Verrocchi joined us a few years after that, and he became one of our first partners. Before he started, he was a student, then became a trainee, then became a graduate, and then became a pharmacist. And then we said, we're going to open up a pharmacy. We're going to buy a pharmacy in Northland. Would you like to be a partner there? And he became a partner in that pharmacy. We have about 600 pharmacy trainees every year that go through our system, do their traineeship. Of those, about half of them go to hospital or industry. We lose them to industry or hospital, and about half that are left, half of them want to go back to Malaysia or Indonesia or China, where they become king of the castle. So about a quarter of these 600 become pharmacists in our system. And then as they gradually progress through, they've worked with people that have worked with us, that have worked with the founders. So the culture is, throughout if you go to any one of our stores, I think you'll find that's the same culture everywhere. There's enthusiasm, there's a do feeling. Nobody, has there's no airs and graces, nobody, nothing's below anybody to do. I mean, everybody is able to sweep the floor or to put stuff clean up a broken bottle. There's no airs and graces. It's a can-do environment.
So when you think about leadership and you started out as a pharmacist opening your own stores, but you've built this multi-billion-dollar retail giant, and there's so much written about leadership as a cornerstone to culture. Sometimes I think leadership is actually the opposite of what you just said, where there's no airs and graces and everybody could sweep the floor, everyone could stack a shelf. What are some of the perspectives you've unpacked over the years around your role as a leader and the role of leaders in organizations? What should a budding leader really keep in mind from the lessons from Jack Gance in terms of what you've learned?
Well, I think you've got to show by example. I mean, there's no point telling people what to do. You've got to show by example. You've got to have done it yourself. There's no point talking about something you've never done, because that's very hollow. I mean, I've done everything in the business, from importing, from retail, from selling, from buying, and so have all the other, so all the other key executives. And you can't do it by telling people what to do. You've got to do it by having done it, and they know that you know what you're talking about. It's people know that and they know if you don't know.
and they work it out pretty quickly too, don't they? What so does the culture monitor itself? Sometimes people will join a company and they're not a great fit. Do you find if you build the culture strongly enough, the culture actually starts to manage itself in terms of who are the people that really align with what we're doing and who doesn't fit? I mean, recruitment is actually the starting point of great culture.
Pretty well. I mean, I'll give you, I mean, there's been situations where we've bought a pharmacy and the owner of that pharmacy says, I want to be a partner. Now they've never worked with us before. They've worked that store before. And in almost all cases, it's a disaster because the culture is different. We will try to bring our people in, but the person running it has got a completely different culture. And so we resist as much as possible for people businesses we buy for them to become partners. It just doesn't work.
Mm. So let's talk about that. Sort of leads us into this is a complex business in terms of I don't know what your SKU count is and things like that, but you've obviously got thousands of product lines in stores and a lot of logistics involved. There's a lot of moving parts. 600 stores. It's a complex operational business. If we talk about execution at store level, for people that are expanding and growing a business, it's when you're the founder and you have your hands over the top of everything, that's one thing. But as it grows and you have less control at every store level, and then 600, I don't know if you can even get to 600 stores in a year. So what are some of the hallmarks of excellence of execution that you've consciously tried to build in?
We have about 240 partners, and the partners, own 2 or 3 stores. And they're the people that continue to evolve with the culture. And they're the ones that help make sure that the execution's right. They're the ones, I mean, head office will give recommendations. By the way, the stores are run by pharmacists. The pharmacists have to make their own decisions, and they do. But the recommendations that we put forward are generally accepted because they work. But there again, the pharmacist can make every decision. That's the law. That's the pharmacy law. So what happens is that we will have recommendations for planograms where products are, and the planograms are based on sales statistics, gross margin, market, customer movements, etc. And they're very scientifically calculated, and we send them out to the stores, and the stores generally follow the planograms. So you go to any of our stores, you'll find that they're pretty well laid out the same way. Every store, slightly different shape, different size. Some will have more aisles, some will have less, but the layout's pretty similar. And so the execution. Look, if you give suggestions and directions, and it doesn't result in a successful business, you're not going to get good compliance. But if you give suggestions and recommendations, and it results in increased customer satisfaction, increased customer sales, when you do a promotion, the supplier loves it, the customer loves it, the store loves it, it sells through. That's the formula for success. And we hone that based on the feedback we have. We have a lot of feedback. We get sales reports. We have full data of all the sales. We have the total pharmacy market numbers as well. So we have access to a lot of data to pick the right products at the right time. And we have close relationships with the suppliers, and they will tell us what will work and what they tried. They tried this promotion, didn't work. And we won't dictate to them. We'll collaborate with them. We won't say to them, you will do this. We'll say, what can we do to make the pie bigger? It's not a matter of trying to get a bigger slice of the pie. It's trying to make a bigger pie and getting a good slice of the bigger pie.
Yeah. So you've got multi-dimensional data sets that you're able to actually interrogate. And so with that autonomy at store level, obviously accountability has to sit at that level as well. So What does the accountability framework of the larger corporation look like, all the way down to store level? So I wasn't aware that the pharmacist has to be in control by law um, at store level. So that's interesting for a start. But I'm assuming you're not reliant upon just a compliance-driven accountability structure.
We do store visits. We go around to the stores and we look at what they do at the store level, and we'll comment on things that they may or may not have, which are different. And we're good. We're happy to take feedback. I mean, they can come up with ideas that we never thought of, and we will look at implementing them across the board and suggest them across the board.
Mm.
But the thing is, as I said, if you're successful, people follow the rules. If
Yeah,
you're not successful, nobody will follow the rules.
yeah, it's pretty simple.
They're suggestions.
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty simple. Do you and Sam and Mario still get out to the stores as the founders on a regular basis and get on the ground and see what's happening?
Not as much, but certainly Mario does. I mean, Mario would have been to every one of the 600 stores. Sam would have been to, quite a few. Yeah, the answer is less so. I mean, I'm more involved in the strategic and the strategy in
Yeah,
this merger. I was heavily involved in that. But I've still got my ear to the ground, and I still know what goes on.
yeah. So at that founder level, and if we think about the founder mentality, I know that a feature, and I watched a podcast that you were on, and the conversation was about how have you made decisions over time. I mean, Sam is your brother, Mario's been with you for a very long time. Um, I know there's this sense of family, inside the business, but how has the founder's story unfolded? How do you resolve decisions, or when you're not in agreement on things? Multiple founders can pull in different directions.
Well, I mean, we've never had to vote on anything. It's basically, I might have an idea. I'll talk to Sam or Mario or both. If they're in agreement, it'll be put into place. If they don't agree and they can't convince me, I can't convince them, we just won't go ahead. Basically, we have to have unanimous agreement, which we do. We have very few differences between us.
And do you think you've ever lost opportunity because of this commitment to unanimous agreement?
Probably had lost opportunity to lose money because sometimes the idea that you feel so strongly about, and then you tell your idea to Mario or Sam, and as you're speaking, you think this doesn't sound very good at all. And it's like you want to have someone that you can bounce an idea off, because something's coming in mind is very strong, and you need to be able to make sure that it resonates with other people in the organization, not just Sam and Mario, but managers, other people we've got a very strong management team. I don't want to say to them, this is what you got to do. I want them to have ownership as well, otherwise it won't work.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my follow-up question. Have there been instances where that commitment to, unanimous decision making has actually protected you? But I suspect there's been plenty of them. What what are some of the biggest challenges been in the business over the whole kind of pathway over the last 50 years that you really had to bunker down and put some grit into this and get it resolved? And I'd love to get some insights into what you think got you through those big challenges in the business.
People have asked me that question quite often, and I say, look, I don't really know. I can't really remember the big challenges because, every challenge is an opportunity as well as a challenge. I tend to be very positive, and tend to focus on, you've got an issue here. There's also an opportunity, and when they had the 60-day dispensing, for example, I mean, we were faced with a reduction in margin and sales and customer numbers. We just had to work around that and work on ways of being able to make it better for the customer. And every challenge has also got an opportunity.
And do you find yourself generally then getting back to how do I make it better for the customer while we address this circumstance we're confronted with?
Well, the number one focus is on the customer. The number two focus is probably on the supplier
Yeah.
or the pharmacy or the staff. We're the last one. I mean, if everyone's satisfied, we're the last people that should be satisfied.
That's not how every business operates, Jack.
Well, that might be the case, but I mean, if the customer is satisfied, if the supplier is satisfied, and the supplier has to be satisfied.
Yeah.
I don't want them to be delighted. I want them to be satisfied. I want the staff to be satisfied, and they've got products I'd like to sell, a system that works easily, where they get customers come back and say, I like what you sold me, it was really good. Everyone, it's got to be a win-win for everybody. I really believe that it's not a win-win-win, it's a win-win-win-win-win all the way down.
And when I said, a lot of companies don't operate like that, I was being a little facetious in that it seems like a pretty good formula, and you've got to wonder why that isn't the primary way, everyone approaches business, because the evidence is in the results too, as well, of course, in terms of what you've been able to do with Chemist Warehouse. Let's talk about decision making. So you mentioned decision making then, and decision making by partners, and we have an increasing need to be more agile with decision making these days, but you want a unanimous decision to be made. You want everyone to be in on this. Are you able to walk me through the process, or what happens when there's a pretty big opportunity, either a big opportunity or a big challenge confronting you, and you're going to have layers of people involved in this? Does someone just take that and lead it, or do you put the decision out to the group as a collective and go, let's figure this thing out? How do you get fast decisions made in a complex environment where you want everyone to unanimously agree as well before you move forward?
I'll give you an example. When we went to New Zealand, there's a number of decisions and a number of processes we had to put in place. What we did was we looked for a pharmacist partner that was prepared to go over to New Zealand, and we found Asman, who was running Tasmania, and he decided that he volunteered to go over to New Zealand. He went over there and he spent a year studying to getting qualified in New Zealand and learning the market. In the meantime, he was bringing us back information about what we needed, giving us details of how we're going to manage it, what products, etc., getting the product range together. So the decision to have Asman go over there was made by the management team, by Mario, Sam, myself, the operations, Mario Tasconi. We all decided, yes, it was worth, but we monitored it. It was worth doing that. We monitored it. And then gradually we learned. I mean, the biggest mistake you can make is to think that you know everything. Go over there, build 50 stores, and you've got 50 mistakes.
Mm.
You might know the Masters situation when Woolworths came out.
Yeah.
Decided they're going to compete with Wesfarmers, and they built 42 stores without testing it once. Thought they had a strategic advantage, which they didn't, but they thought they did. But the strategic advantage they thought they had wasn't really an advantage for their customers. I mean, they wanted to make it more female-oriented. Well, is your customer female? They wanted to make it more beautiful. They wanted to do it in marble instead of corrugated iron. Is your customer going to appreciate that? Is the customer going to thank you for having a nicer store? They're going to thank you for having white tiles so that the footprints on the floor, embarrass you as you walk in the store.
Mm.
So, but they built 42 of them. They had to build one. Would have been a slower process. They could have been successful. They could have been as big as Bunnings.
And Bunnings' journey to the the warehouse style retail store wasn't done in one fell swoop either. They didn't just go and build a whole bunch of them. They had tested them. I remember when they first launched them, and people were saying, well, I like the suburban hardware store, right? Do I want a warehouse hardware store? But now that is the model, right? But it was tested and proven.
And having said that, Wesfarmers went over to the Bunnings went over to the UK,
That's right.
home base, and they decided they knew better than anyone else, and they converted them all to Bunnings, which didn't work, and they ended up exiting there. Didn't cost them 8 billion, but it cost them money.
Yeah, and I remember them making that move and then coming back because it didn't play out.
You think watching Woolworths blow up $8 billion that they would have learnt the lesson and said, "Hey, let's not do the same in the UK." But no.
So when you and retail is this interesting space. We have so many online sales happening now. I can't remember the stats about how many deliveries I've made every day. It seems like a box turns up at my house every single day from somewhere, from someone. Sometimes we don't remember we've even ordered it. So that's been a big change to the retail space. As you said, the technology in stores has changed quite dramatically, including sometimes things that people don't like facial recognition and all of this sort of thing. AI, we're seeing emerge. Even people suggesting now that AI agents could conduct the performance feedback for team members instead of a manager. They could actually have a performance conversation with an AI voice bot, if you like. And you have such a focus on the customer, and I'm guessing people in general. What are some of the things you think could start to happen to retail? And is this human to human interaction that's been at the cornerstone of retail for so long still be the key, actually, to great retail?
Well, we're using as much technology as we can. One of the things we're doing is we're going to be having our staff wear body cameras, not to spy on customers, but as they go down the aisle, it will be able to look at what's missing on the shelves,
Uh-huh.
and it will then go and alert the business to be able to order what's missing on the shelves. It'll be doing a stock count as they walk around the aisles. It will know where they are, and will know what's supposed to be on the shelf. It's a technology that we're partnering with to be able to do that. Facial recognition. I mean, I know that there's been a lot of problems with facial recognition. I think it's terrible that the Privacy Council, whoever it is, said that it shouldn't be done. But all we're trying to do is protect our customers and protect our staff. And Bunnings, I think, perhaps didn't have the right signs, but we have a lot of shoplifting, and we know who the shoplifters are. We have their photos. We did try it. If we put their photos into the system and they walk in the store, we can approach them and ask them to leave. It saves them. It saves people. It reduces the shoplifting, which reduces our losses, and our losses have to be made up in increased prices. And more importantly, a lot of these are abusive.
Mm.
They have knives, and if we can stop them at the door within 2 steps, that's fantastic.
Mm. And with emerging technologies, not just around security, but as you said, around stock management, and technologies that emerge for a better customer experience online, do you still see this strong interface between physical stores near where people live, as well as the ability to go online and shop the way we do? Are we at the model now that we're likely to sit on in terms of retail for an extended period of time between online and physical stores?
People ask me, what do I like? What do I think about our online business? Well, our online business is probably the biggest, certainly the biggest pharmacy, and we sell more health and beauty online than anyone else in Australia. But it's not the most profitable part of our business. And people say, well, why is that? And we say, because if you walk into the store, you do the work. You take the stock off the shelf, you put it in a basket, we scan it. There's no credit card issue. There's never any chargeback. You take the goods, we might give you a plastic bag, or you might pay for a bag, and you leave the store. There's no recourse.
Mm.
When you buy, but probably the most important thing is, as you walk around that store, you bought 20 things that you never thought you'd buy when you walked into that store, which is really good for you and good for us, because you only bought them because you wanted them. That's good for us because we're then able to be able to provide you with things that you ultimately want. But when you go online, you go straight to the things you want. We try to suggest things that you might want to buy. Very hard for you to make a decision. And you usually just buy the things that you wanted to, and they're usually the lowest price, lowest margin for us. That's okay. Then we have to pack it. We have to then ship it. And up until recently, a lot of them were shipped for free shipping. So forget it. So now we charge for shipping, so at least we don't make a loss on every sale. But then we have to pack it, pay for the packaging, all the labor costs in doing that and checking the orders. Then we have to answer your call, where's my parcel, etc. The overall labor costs of doing an online business is much greater than the labor costs of doing it in store. You buy lower margin products generally, and you don't buy adjacencies. So we'd love to have more people in stores than online. But having said that, half our online business is actually click and collect, which is good. So it means they come to the store, and hopefully when they come to the store, we notice they'll often walk around and buy something else that they forgot about when they ordered it online.
Yeah. And I think that, they are the nuances that you only know if you've actually done both models or run them concurrently. I think a lot of people think start an online store, it's a pathway to wealth without really understanding all of the intricacies and challenges, particularly if they've never been in a bricks and mortar alternative to see the benefits of that. If you were giving young, let's imagine just one last question I want to ask, and then I'd love to ask you three quick questions just so people know Jack a bit better. But imagine you've taken a young pharmacist under your wing. You quite like them, so you want to mentor them a little bit. They may become a Chemist Warehouse partner, but you really just want to give them the best of your wisdom and advice that you've acquired. The top 2 or 3 things that you would say to them, whatever you do, don't forget this. What would you share with them?
Well, I think when I say you've got to be customer focused, I think the most important thing is imagine you are the customer and you've just had this interaction with yourself. Is this a good interaction? Is this what you would have expected? Just think of it from how you'd feel if you were on the other side of what you're giving. So, try to, make people, make them smile, give them, give them more than they wanted, make the reaction one, which is a very positive thing, and wanting to come back. Would you want to come back after that reaction that you just had with the customer? If you were the customer, would you want to come back? If the answer is no, well then next time, make sure you do things that makes them want to come back.
Fabulous. They wouldn't have taught you that when you were studying pharmacy. I wouldn't have thought all those years ago. Where do you think you really originally picked up this absolute commitment to customer focus and a customer centric business?
I don't know. I mean, my parents had a milk bar, and we worked in the milk bar, and I guess that's a very customer focused, business. And it was hard work back in those days. I don't know. I think that I see the people come through pharmacy. There are those that have the native instinct of being able to provide the consumer with what they want, and others that are some that understand the business sense of things, and others have got no idea. I think you either have it or don't have it.
Yeah.
It's like you're artistic. Some people are not. I'm not artistic, but I think I understand the customer.
And maybe it is an attribute. Maybe customer centricity is an attribute rather than a skill. You have it within you, or maybe you don't. That's an interesting perspective. I'd love to wrap up with just 2 real quick questions, and just to get your response out of interest, if you're happy to do it. If you could time travel, you're obviously a well-studied person. If you could time travel to any period in history, and you just get to observe, you don't get to change it, you just get to observe. What period in history is really fascinating for you, and why?
Well, I think today is more fascinating. I mean, you think about what's happening today. I
Yeah.
mean, you go back to when they invented the wheel. I mean, like that was probably took about 100 years before they invented the wheel. Today, they invent something in 10 seconds, you know. I think there's more happening today. I would not want to go back. I would want to go forward.
That's interesting.
I'd like to know what it's like in 20 years. Hopefully, when I die, I'll be able to come back.
Yeah. Well, you're not the first very, very successful business leader that said exactly that to me, right? When I say, what part in history would you like to visit? Not a lot have done it, but there's been two or three in the podcast that I'd love to be. It's now, it's right now. And I want to see where this is headed. If you could have, you said they invented the wheel. If you could have invented anything in history and been seen as the person that invented that, what would you love to have been the originator of?
Invented.
Anything.
I would have loved to have invented Bitcoin because I think the guy that invented Bitcoin, and I'd like to be able to know the success of Bitcoin when it first started.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, probably doing pretty well. Well, you did create Les Spec, Les Tan. They were products you launched.
Yes.
I think it was with My Chemist. Was that just a market driven thing or?
Well, the specs, we had a sunglass distribution business, and my customers, my fellow pharmacists said, go on television because we want a television advertised product. I'd say if I go on television and I produce a commercial, it's going to cost me $4 a pair, which comes out of your margin. What do you want to do? No, we want to be on television and we want the $4 margin as well. I said, well, I want to be 6'6" and handsome, but some things aren't going to happen. But it was when my wife, Evelyn, saw the back of a stand, a pair of sunglasses that were flexible. You could bend them, twist them, and they were lightweight, wouldn't break. I thought, here, I've got something that is going to be. Now, the customers don't know what they want. See, sometimes the customer doesn't know what they want, but if you give them what they don't know they want, but they end up wanting it, and they wanted a lightweight, unbreakable product, and we created the specs.
Yeah.
That was, and that was because we saw things which, I mean, if nobody would have said, I want a computer that does this, this, and this. The computers were invented and produced things before someone had a need for it.
Yeah.
If I'd have said, well, what do you want a computer to do? People say, I don't know. The thing is, we created the specs, which was unbreakable, lightweight, French, and very fashionable. And the consumer said, yeah, I resonate with that. I think that is what I want. And they bought lots of them.
Yeah. I remember the ads, when they came out and them being bent and everything else. And I think what you say is absolutely true. People say, the customer always knows best. That is actually not necessarily true. Sometimes the customer doesn't even know what's available to them to know what they want, but they need to be shown. They need to, if it's once they're shown, they can go, hang on, that makes sense. Flexible, unbreakable, lightweight, fashionable sunglasses, I want them. So, Jack, thank you so much for the time you've given us today. I hope it gives people an insight into, one of Australia's real retail empires. It's the Chemist Warehouse. People can see behind you is an immediately visible retail store in every shopping precinct where there is one. It is a much loved Australian retail store. People do go in there to buy one thing and come out with $100 worth of stuff, which actually tells us they're enjoying the experience. And sometimes the best wisdom is the simple wisdom. And the simple wisdom, I think everyone's heard all the way through this, is, the customer might not always know best, but you should always focus on the customer and then give them what they want. So, Jack, thank you so much for your generosity of time today. I know you're busy. I know you've got a lot going on. And I look forward to seeing what the future turns into with Chemist Warehouse. I'm sure it'll be bigger and better.
Me too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Thank you very much.